Now, my name is Vic Wheeldon and I'm an ex-trawler skipper from Hull, and I'm here to talk about the Icelandic gunboats and the machinery that they use for cutting this trawler's gear during the Cod Wars. I left school in 1961 and joined the fishing industry as a deck learner. I spent the next 14 years on trawlers from Hull. Most of that time was spent at Iceland from the very beginning until I finished in 1975. In 1973 was when I first went skipper, and the ship was called the Kingston Sapphire. And during the time we were fishing off the North Cape of Iceland, I was among a group of other Icelandic trawlers in fog and noticed a target on the radar approaching at speed. We knew then that this was probably the gunboat, and the system then was to haul your gear up as quickly as possible. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get all my gear recovered, and the Odin, the Icelandic gunboat, managed to cut away my trawl, the bobbins, and all I recovered was the warps and the trawl doors. The general practice for the Icelandic gunboats at that time was then to try to arrest the trawler. But of course, we weren't happy with that situation, so usually a chase followed, whereby the Icelandic gunboat would show a little force trying to get us to stop and take us into an Icelandic port, but generally after an hour or so he would give up and look for another target. And that's the reason I'm here to talk about that now. The system that the Icelandic gunboats used for cutting nets was very similar to the machinery or equipment used for cutting mines during the Second World War. This is an example of one behind me, and as you can see, it looks rather like an anchor with 4 flukes on rather than 2, flukes being the arms that you can see bent up. Those were fitted with sharp cutters, not sharp enough to inflict injuries on a person, but when towed at speed and hooked up to a trawler's wires, it would very quickly cut through them. Most people will understand using a warp cutter to cut any trawler's gear was dangerous for both ships. You were putting ships in a close quarters situation to begin with. The gunboat had to get fairly close to the trawler because of the wires he was cutting, and if any crew was on deck of the trawler at the time, the wires could recoil after being cut, and anyone stood in the vicinity of the wire recoiling back on board was possibly in danger of being injured. This particular warp cutter you see behind me has kindly been donated to the Hull Maritime Museum by the Icelandic government and will be on display here until the end of September, after which it will be located in another part of the museum but will be on public display.